folks, today I'm here to talk about a book that I have very mixed feelings about, and that is The PISCES by Melissa Broder. In some aspects I love this book, and in other ways it was so frustrating and so visceral and disgusting that I hated it. So I don't know how to rate this book, but I thought I'd have a crack at reviewing it. And this is going to be split into two sections. There's going to be a spoiler-free bit at the beginning. At least I won't give away anything more than you would see on the blurb. And then I will give a warning and go into a bit more analysis and depth on the book and why I found it problematic and brilliant. So the premise of the book in a sentence would be troubled PhD student falls in love with merman. But there's so much going on in this book that really doesn't do it justice. So she is a student studying Sappho, and at the beginning of the book she has a breakup with her long-term boyfriend. So that's one of the sort of catalysts. I guess it's the main catalyst at the beginning for a change in her life. And she's also at a crossroads with her PhD. She's not sure if she even believes in her thesis anymore. And then she hits rock bottom. And her sister basically rescues her and says, okay, so I'm going away for a few months over summer, and I need somebody to house sit my house and look after my dog. So she thinks, great. Her sister, Lucy, Lucy's the protagonist, can come and live in this house, and her sister will pay for some therapy sessions, group therapy sessions, and hopefully Lucy will get better over this time. And so she's living in this house by the sea, which facilitates the whole merman thing, and she's looking after her sister's dog. Parts that I found great about this book were the therapy sessions that she has and the discussions that they have. It's a group for women with depression and issues with men, which Lucy definitely fits into. But she doesn't think that she does. She doesn't feel as though she fits into this group. She doesn't think that she needs to be there. And she, at the beginning, thinks that the other women in the group are ridiculous and have these kind of trivial problems, without really realising that a lot of their problems are reflections of her own problems. So that aspect of it was really interesting. So there's a lot of self-reflection and, well, I say self-reflection. She is the least self-aware character I've come across in a very long time, which is quite frustrating to read, but also very interesting to see her thoughts and her actions out of alignment. She does these things and doesn't seem to realise the repercussions on her mental health or the repercussions on other people, and she just sort of seems to float along through some of these situations that are very damaging to her. So those aspects of it I really liked. Parts where she's talking about her thesis and how she's unsure of how to proceed with it, that was interesting. The stuff that wasn't so interesting, wasn't so enjoyable to read, or was quite uncomfortable to read, is that parts of this do read like mermaid erotica. I think there needs to be a warning on the front of this that it's very explicit, but it's also very visceral and quite disgusting in places. So she has affairs with many men throughout the book, and she goes into extreme detail in each one that I found very uncomfortable to read. I think I think a lot of people will feel the same. It's more full on than any other book I've read in that sense. And in some ways it feels quite unnecessary, but in other ways it does kind of fit her personality, her need to, I think, feel real and as though she exists. But that's a whole extra discussion there. But just be aware that that's there, and it's I would recommend reading the physical book, not the audiobook, because I had to stop listening to the audiobook a few times. It was that full on. Anyway, that's probably as much depth as I can go into without giving much away. The next section is going to be a bit of a rant, I think. So buckle up. Also, if you haven't read the book, maybe stop listening now, because there will be spoilers. If you don't think that you will read the book, then you might enjoy this. I don't know. So, I mean, aside from all the mermaid erotica, other parts of it are also quite visceral, so that there was that. What really irritated me was that her relationship with Theo, the merman, it's very self-destructive on her part, and she doesn't ask him any questions. You would think the first thing you would do if you met a merman, at least, you know, or any mythical creature who could speak English or whatever language you speak, you would think the first thing you would do is ask, are there more of you? What is your world like? Fill in the blanks for me. What's true? What's not? You know, I don't know, what do mermaids do normally in mythology? Are you really sirens who sing to sailors and cause them to shipwreck? Things like that. How much the mythology is real? What is it like under the ocean? That's the main thing that I would want to know, and it's something that she sort of wonders, but she never asks. It's very infuriating, and that was one of my main issues with her as a character. But I think that very much demonstrates how lacking in self-awareness and how troubled she is, really, because she's a scholar. She should be asking these questions, I would have thought. Yet she doesn't. She asks him a little bit about Greek mythology, but apart from that, it's yeah, details of what it's like under the sea. That's what I wanted to know. But part of this is because then towards the end, he asks her to go and live under the sea with him, and she doesn't ask any questions about this either. She again doesn't ask about what it's like under the sea. She doesn't ask how that would work. I live scientifically. I mean, you can't breathe under the ocean, so would it mean that she becomes a mermaid? She wonders about these things, but she never asks. Just very infuriating. But at the end, when she agrees and she goes to the ocean to join him, it becomes this, he has this rope to drag her down, and it's assumed that in order to go with him, she's going to have to die. So he becomes this metaphor for death, and we don't really see her as being suicidal so much, even though she has a suicide attempt at the beginning. But she doesn't even see it as that, but she's definitely at rock bottom. And she has a friend who is suicidal as well, who she just sort of fobs off because she wants to go and be with this merman. And she's so lacking in that self-awareness that she just goes along with it. And then at the end there's this question of, is the merman even real? Is the merman just a metaphor for death, or for this idea of ideal love, even though what she's describing sounds a lot more like lust than love. This frustration very much goes throughout the book, with her lack of awareness. She has these brief affairs with men, and she's just going along with it because she feels as though that's what she can do. She should do, and she shouldn't back out of it. And each time it's described in this extreme detail, and it's sort of her validating her own existence. But she's not enjoying it, and she's thinking, should I just stop this? But she doesn't. She just keeps going with it, and she keeps getting into these same patterns. It's not like she then doesn't do it again. She ends up doing the same thing with different men over and over, and none of them she doesn't actually like any of them. She doesn't even like her boyfriend who she's left. She just, after they break up, she wants him because he doesn't want her. And that's a theme that goes on throughout this book, is that this idea of when somebody wants you, you don't want them, but you only want something when you can't have it. And that happens with friendship, with the love that her sister has for her. She's only worried about not having that when she feels she's about to lose it. With Theo the merman as well, I think the reason it seems that the reason she is so infatuated with him is that she knows it can't work. She knows that they can't be together because they live in these polar opposite worlds, and that their relationship is very much confined to this rock. And even though she does take him home on a few occasions, but that leads to disastrous consequences. So she knows that this relationship is doomed, yet she keeps pursuing it, perhaps because it's doomed. There's a lot going on in this book, and I don't know if you can divorce the wonderful side of it and the kind of analytical, psychological, existential stuff from the erotic and disgusting and visceral side of it, and that actually those two are very much connected, and you can't have one without the other. Which is why I'm very torn about it, because there were parts of it that I just really struggled to read, and there were parts of it that I was utterly engrossed by, and it's a bit like a car crash where you just can't look away. It's just, you see this woman's life spiraling out of control, but you have to know what happens, how it concludes. So in that sense, it is utterly brilliant. And I mean, I just don't know how to reconcile all of this in my head, because it's a brilliant book. It's an absolutely brilliant piece of work, because it makes you think and feel all these things. And it makes you absolutely hate the protagonist in a way that I haven't hated a protagonist or been so frustrated with a character since Catherine Earnshaw in Wuthering Heights. And that's another book that I love, but my goodness, is it the most frustrating thing you've ever read? And yeah, this is I think the first time since Wuthering Heights that I have come across a book that gives me that kind of sense of rage, but also just absolute admiration. And yeah, I know that this is a book that is going to stick with me for a long time, and in some ways I would like to go back and read at least parts of it, because it was so well done. But I don't think I can bring myself to, especially as, and this is quite a big spoiler if you haven't read it, the dog, so when she brings Theo back to the house, the dog, Dominic, her sister's dog, really does not like Theo. And it seems quite clear that that's because Theo is a threat to her. That he is a metaphor for all of her addictive behaviour, all of her self-destruction, and also of her eventual death. And so it makes sense that Theo should be, afraid and resentful. I don't know what exact feelings the dog has towards Theo, but certainly fear is a part of that. And what she does is she starts tranquilizing the dog every time that Theo comes back. And there's a point where Theo's gone back to the ocean and she doesn't know whether she's going to see him again, and she keeps going to the beach, but she keeps tranquilizing the dog just in case Theo comes back. And you can see that the dog isn't a well dog anyway. The dog has diabetes and, you know, isn't a young dog, and you know that it's just spiraling and it's going to end in tears, and it does end in tears. Had I known that that was going to happen, that she was eventually going to kill the dog, I would not have read this book. I wouldn't have touched it. Yet I am glad that I read the book as a whole. Yeah, as an experience, it was incredible, and it's definitely going to stick with me. But it's hard to, well, I definitely can't forgive the protagonist, Lucy, for her destructive behaviour, especially when it wasn't just directed at herself, it's directed at others, and particularly this innocent dog, who was by far the best character. Yeah, so that was The Pisces by Melissa Broder. I don't think I'm going to get over this book for a long time. Maybe I won't ever get over it. I'd like to go back and reread some parts of it, but it's a bit much at the moment. Still feeling quite traumatised by the whole thing. Anyway, if you've read this book, and I'm hoping that if you've watched to this point you have, what did you think of it? Did you enjoy it? Hate it? Were you like me, where you loved parts of it and hated other parts of it? I would love to know different people's thoughts. I think it is a book that you need to talk through afterwards. Whew, yeah, it's very full on, very full on. Anyway, I will leave it at that. I will leave the ball in your court. You can leave comments down below, and I am happy to discuss any of the aspects that I've talked about and anything that I may have missed. This is by no means a comprehensive review or analysis. These are just the things that really stuck out to me. So if you have extra things to add, then do put them down in the comments. As always, thank you very much for watching. I'm sure my next video will be less full on and ranty. It will probably be a book haul talking about nice things, natural history books. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye. Thank you.